In the previous lesson, we took a look at variables, and where I last left off was this nasty screen where we see server error. That's really not helpful. What was the error? What did I do wrong? What line did the error occur on? Now, in this case, we know where the echo was. It was because we forgot to add the closing quotation mark. But as you can probably imagine, when your applications become larger, you really need more information. You need a stack of information about where the error occurred. So I'm going to keep that off, and we're going to take a look at how we can turn this screen into something much more helpful. And to do that, we need to edit our php.ini file. Now, this is going to be slightly different on Windows. You guys might want to do a quick Google search to find out where that file is stored on your system. But once you find it, it's going to be the same process. So to track it down on Mac, I can go to Finder, Applications, we'll go back to MAMP, and then we have all of these scary folders, but don't worry, it's not too bad. We'll go into the bin, and we want to go into PHP. We're using 5.3 in this case, and we want to go into the configuration file. Now I want you to see there is our php.ini file. Now another way you could do this, if you're comfortable in the command line, is to browse there directly, and this is what I would do. I'd go into CD Applications, into MAMP, into the bin, and then maybe I would need a refresher, so I'd go, okay, now I need to go into the PHP. I need to go into PHP 5.3. One more time, list the files, and I know it's in the configuration file, and now I can edit the file, and I'll use Sublime to do it. There we go. Now we're within it. Now this is where we have all of the settings related to how PHP is executed. Things like errors. Should we display errors? We can turn that on or off. Should we allow ASP tags? And what this means is we know now that we can use this syntax for PHP. But there is also kind of an older form where we could use Microsoft's ASP style, which is essentially the same thing except we use angled bracket percentage and then the opposite to close it. But these days, I expect it to be deprecated in a future version, and by default, it is set to off. But if for some reason, and I don't recommend this, but you did want to use them, you would change that to on. Now in our case, we want to look for a setting called display_errors. So I'm going to search for that, and here we are. So this section will outline how errors are handled, and there's lots of different ones. Now, what I want you to note, though, is all of these different settings, you see these semicolons that come before each? All of these right here? Well, that's the way that we actually comment lines. So none of these lines are actually being rendered. They're all commented out for your convenience. You'll see the one that is not commented out is at the bottom, and this is simply saying we're going to display all errors. So I would recommend you do this. You also might want to display things that are deprecated as well, but for now, keep it simple and display all errors. Next, we have this setting here, and this is what we want. Should we display errors? Now this is set to off by default, and this is something you need to wrap your mind around. When errors are displayed, it can open up fractures in your application. So imagine you have this application and it's on the web, and you make a mistake and display errors is set to on. Well, then that's going to display crucial information about your application, about your server, and that's probably something that you don't want people to see. And that's why we recommend that for production, errors are always turned off. And production means it's live, available to anyone on the web. But for development, meaning either you on your computer or your team, you want to display errors all the time. You need to know exactly what's going on under the hood. So now I've made that edit, I've changed it, I'll save it, close the file. But now if I go back and I reload the page, we're still getting server error. What's the problem? Well, the problem is you've made a change to your PHP ini file. Now you need to restart Apache. And if you're using MAMP or WAMP, just open up the app, stop the servers, and restart them immediately. And that'll take just a few seconds to do so. Now, those settings will have taken effect, and if I reload the page, now we can see, okay, it looks like there was some kind of syntax error. Well, the next thing on my mind is, well, what file did this occur in? It occurred in index.php. Okay, and what line should I check to fix it? Well, it happened on line 14. So that either means the error was on line 14, and in this case, because I'm in distraction mode, I will go to View, Exit Distraction Free, and now we can fix our bug. Now you'll note that it said line 14, and that's why you need to be a little careful. It'll give you as much information as possible. In this case, it's saying line 14 because it's assuming that all of this is part of the echo statement. So it's saying, oh, I didn't find a double quote. The error must be here because there's no closing quote. In this case, we can debug from that point and go, okay, I need to add that closing quote. That was my mistake. Now we can go back to Chrome, reload the page, and sure enough, now everything is working as expected. So this can be really helpful. You can imagine things like, what if we echoed out a variable that we thought existed but didn't? Something like first name. Well, now when we view that in the browser and reload, we're going to get this notice. It's not an error that breaks our application, it's a notice, and that's equally important. It's saying, hey, you tried to echo out this variable, but I have no idea what it is. And this variable was displayed on line 12. So now I can come back, line 12, up, yes, I don't know what that variable is. Let's go ahead and create it. First name equals Joe. And now reload the page and everything's working. So this is the easiest way that we can debug our applications. We've run it in the browser. If an error occurs, it will give you some information about that error. And we'll learn in future chapters how we can even extend what is displayed so that we have more of a stack that allows us to debug. But we're not quite there yet. What we've set up now should be a great start. So in the next lesson, I'm going to teach you about arrays, which allow us to store groups of information. Stay tuned.